Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 233. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. We do this live on Sundays, 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, join us, jump in the comments. We appreciate it. You can find the audio absolutely everywhere. What a week for our White Sox. Gosh, yeah, we're going to talk a little crosstown series or Windy City Classic, as I still call it, from way back when. How about that series with the Rockies? Ouch. But chopping everything up with me, my very good friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Buddy, we're another week closer to the end. It's good to be here.
Another week closer to the end.
That's the good news, right? Let's
Yeah,
start with the good news. Let's try and be positive today. We've been so negative the last, 2 years. Let's try and find a way to be positive on this show today. Is there any possible chance? I'm excited. I spent the entire day today out at Raging Waves water park out in Yorkville. PSA, wear sunscreen. Don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Wait a second. You need to make a service announcement going to a water park in mid to late August that you need to wear sunscreen.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Just checking in. All right.
Because I good thing as I always do, wear my hat because I didn't wear a hat today, Nick, and I missed some spots. So I've got some nice red stripes on my. I look kind of like a tiger, so it's fun.
Did you have that Jake Berger situation? Didn't he have a spring training issue with a mesh hat?
He had like
was it a mesh hat you were wearing?
I wasn't wearing a hat. It was started off with a visor. Thought it was a good visor day.
Oh, okay. Very Coach Nagy of you. Nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
I was visor guy today. Don't do that. Don't do what Pat did today.
Okay. We're gonna talk all kinds of negative, positive. I can give you one positive thing, and we'll get to it, I'm sure, in this episode, is Lenyn Sosa. And I know it's a very small sample size, but let the guy play. Just let the man play. It was nice to see that in the finale as the Sox salvaged a win. Sox are 49-75, folks. 49-75, 15 and a half games out in the Central, and 20, I think, out in the wild card. So if you're still following that and keeping track, as I do still look at it.
Are you really?
I look at it. I notice it. You know, I have eyes. I can see it, and it's not good, but I still check in. Aren't you curious, like to see how bad it's going to be, or it is?
You know what? I at this point, no, I'm not that curious.
Let me ask you this, Pat. Are you at a point of where you are possibly you're embarrassed to be a White Sox fan? Like if you're wearing a Sox hat, do you question maybe, do I get out of the house with a Sox hat on or a Sox shirt? And you're like, you know what? I don't want to hear it from anybody. I don't even want to, I'm not, because this is an embarrassment right now.
No, I don't think it's to that point. I maybe in my youth, Nick, because you bump into, let's face it, you and I in our youth, we would hang out a lot more saloons and have types of conversations where you would have to engage with people where you're getting in arguments. Sure, I'm typically not arguing with people at Ace Hardware. So it just doesn't lend to not wearing Sox gear out in public. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm not embarrassed. I'm okay wearing the stuff, but boy, I am embarrassed by the team, the lack of fundamentals, all that stuff that's been going on and plaguing this team for a long time. And then, go watching a little bit these first two games, at least of the Colorado series, and just watching your brains get, you just got bludgeoned, really. Kopech had no chance. Jesse Schulten's not much better. And no surprise, a lot of runs scored in Colorado. Luckily, today was a different story. But, you're just some guys are just at that point in the season, they're going through the motions. Some guys have just hit their skids. Like, let's talk about Kopech, in my opinion. Again, we'll talk about it until the end of the season. He is now, again, every time he goes out there and pitches, he's pitching the most innings he's ever pitched in his career. And boy, does it show on most nights. So is it to the point where the season's lost anyway? Maybe you just shut it down with him. I mean, is
No.
the innings too valuable to just, the opportunity go by the wayside?
Look, I'm just as frustrated as everybody is frustrated, confused, bewildered, whatever type of word you want to use. And I would imagine Kopech is equally, if not more, out of his mind, just not understanding how come I can't figure this out. I've put work in the off season, all these expectations on my shoulders, way back when at the first rebuild. I haven't been able to deliver. A lot of injuries. My role has been switched around, and I just have not been able to show Sox fans, organization, myself, most importantly, what I know I can do consistently. We've seen flashes, of course. I don't think you shut him down unless he's hurt, because I think he's got to learn from this. He's got to wear it. Unless he's really messed up and he's like, I just can't, but I think that you can learn some things from this, because if you get through this tough stretch and you're Michael Kopech, and there's been a few of these types of tough stretches over the years, don't you think that is something that you can go to in the future when times get tough again and say, man, I saw the other end of that. I got through that. I didn't give up. I just didn't ask to get shut down. I battled. I grinded. I know he's tired of talking about grinding, but that's where I'm at. It takes a lot of support, healthy support around him. And he obviously has to do a lion's share of it, but I think you keep going. But it's sad to watch right now.
Yeah. And to me, it seems like, one, he's not fooling anybody. It seems like, is he back to possibly tipping pitches again, or is the stuff just not that effective?
I think it's just, he cannot have a repeatable sequence. We talk about, I think I've used the bicycle analogy, and you're a kid and the chain fell off of your gear, right? And you're trying to, you've got to be like wheeling, to get that chain to kind of slip into the teeth, and then it starts flowing, and it keeps just slipping out of gear for him. And I don't know how that needs to be recorrected. If it is a mechanical thing, if it's between the ears, Ethan Katz, where are you? But it's more than just Ethan Katz. It's a lot of Kopech here.
So if you're the pitching coach and you're part of the staff, Nick, and maybe someday you will be, that would be lovely to see. So how long do you keep him out there in games and let him just get his brains beat in? It's like, okay, let's just see how he comes with this. Let's see. He's working on stuff. We know he's going to give up, hits and give up runs, and this game doesn't really matter anyway. Let's see how he can respond and find something. Or is it just like, again, is it hurting him? But
you gotta have him get through some of these rough starts, though. It's the rough stretch, and it's the game within the game. It's the rough outings, So if you pull him after a third or after an inning in 2/3 or something, it's like, well, let's see if he can get through this. He gave up 5 or 6, maybe he could settle down. Again, not ideal at all, but we also need guys to eat innings. And according to Pedro Grifol, he's still counting wins here. There's no compromising. So that's an organizational question. If they're looking to have eyes on anybody else, any of their arms, it's like, well, maybe we're going to do a Kopech and then option B and C, three-headed monster towards the end, just so we can get eyes on other guys, young arms. But here's a quote from Grifol I'll give you the quote after Friday and after Saturday. This is the Kopech game. When you give up 5 runs in the first inning and 4 in the 4th or 5th, and you're down 9-1, that's kind of what happens, Grifol said. And is it
Yeah, but
acceptable?
what's kind of what? Wait a minute. Can I stop you?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
kind of what happens?
It's just things not going right for the White
Okay.
Sox.
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I was.
Well,
I almost
Griffol's
had a
got a
seizure
way of
there for a
words.
moment. I didn't know what
Griffol,
was going on.
he has got a way of saying things. And is this acceptable? No, but that's what happens. It's unacceptable because our job is to start the game and finish it with energy. And I will address that. This energy thing keeps popping up. The culture was one week, the chemistry, whatever, and fundamentals has been all season long. But now it's like the energy lately, and I don't know what's going on. Like, are guys not getting enough sleep, or is there not proper nutrition available for them? I'm reminded of that Brian Regan sketch where he's talking about Pop-Tarts and how there's actually instructions for microwaving your Pop-Tart. Like, put your Pop-Tarts in the microwave for 3 seconds. If you're just, slamming the alarm, jumping out of bed, nuking a Pop-Tart, and then trying to get out the door, you better loosen up your schedule.
Oh.
So, like, are guys just like, how are they preparing? Is that a lack of preparation, diet? I don't know. So Sox, lose again on Saturday, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what Grifol had to say. There's energy, and at times we lose it. And when we get it back, it just comes and goes in the same game. And that's really unacceptable. We need to bring it every day, every single inning. We'll talk about that, and we'll move on to tomorrow. Okay. There's a lot of chatter.
He's always addressing it. He says, I'm going to address it. Like, is he waiting? Like, he says a lot that he's going to address this. Is he waiting to address it at the end of the season and just like the scroll? Like the 7 seals are unveiled and there's these 7 scrolls.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a big, just, okay, guys, I've told everybody we've got to address this. Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3. Let's start here.
Yeah. I mean, I've always seen managers, making little notes. I remember my high school coach, boy, he had a ledger in his back pocket pretty much. And he would just be always taking notes because he wanted to address things after the game. Now it was, you had post-game talks, and I don't know, maybe Grifol, that's what he's talking about. Maybe there's a pre-game the next day, maybe on the plane, he's just shouting up and down the aisles, energy. This is unacceptiple. Are people even listening to him anymore?
Fast asleep.
I mean, is it just white noise?
Hey, could you bring some energy? Hey, could you bring some energy?
I just would like a word. Energy tomorrow. Up. Need it all game long. Every pitch.
By the way, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you were a fantastic pitcher for Lockport at one point in your career, did you just get called Murawski or did you get called Nick? What did they call you? Did they call you a number? What was like if you needed a kick in the pants to get going? What were you called?
Oh, it was always Murawski. Yeah.
By like a curse word before or afterwards, or was?
Oh,
was it usually...
sure. Yeah. I mean, things weren't fuzzy and cuddly back then. Man, you got chewed out. I mean, there was some tough language
back in the 90s.
Back in the 90s, man, that was a wild place. Mid to late 90s. There was no rules. So, but you got your number every now and then with pickoff plays. That would be your number. The first baseman would call your number, and that's how I knew I was set up for a pickoff play to first.
And good. Did you have a good move, by the way?
I had an adequate move at first. I had a all conference move to third as a righty.
Wow.
All conference. I had a really good pickoff move to third, which I don't know if you can do anymore. But boy, it was solid. I was asked to go into the bullpen to practice my pickoff move to third because I sometimes would come in for relief. And just in case I needed to get somebody out at third, I would be practicing into the bullpen. But I was told to not make it obvious.
Oh,
So
don't make it obvious. Would you just like perform this trick at parties and things? Come watch my son, the crazy kid that throws the third awesomely. Nick Murawski, gather around.
Yeah.
I'm
All the
assuming that
carnivals.
I was impersonating your father at that
Oh,
moment.
sure. Yeah.
Let's
Spot
just
on.
say.
Identical. Sydney Brown, great. And thank you, Drew, for jumping in. Is Sydney, great idea. We should have definitely a weekly Pedro quote.
But there's so many to choose from.
I know. That's the
How
thing.
could
That
we
would be
choose?
very difficult.
Maybe you read them all to me, and then maybe I'll vote. We'll take turns. I'll read one week, and you vote on what you think the quote of the week was, and then vice versa. We'll take turns for the rest of the year. That sounds like a fun idea.
That sounds acceptable.
It means I'll have
bring
to
your
read
energy,
something
though.
every
Bring
other
the
week.
energy. Bring your energy.
Okay.
So Sox ended up salvaging the series, won the finale. Lenine Sosa, good to see that. Did not start in the game. I don't believe he started. He came in late and made his presence felt. Colas had some work. Andrus was hitting the ball pretty well lately. You know, that's the guy that it's like, I know you care, man, and it's fun to see people care, but I also want to see what's coming for 2024. So I want to see much more Lenine Sosa. I think that's a bright spot. And I hope he's, I think he was brought up because of the Eloy Jimenez. There was a groin situation, no shocker to anybody. And then he was on paternity leave. He had a groin issue, which is why he didn't play, I think in the Cubs series or the last game of the Cubs series or something.
And the groin caused a birth.
You know what? That one was a doozy. I just have to go on leave at this point. And Lenine Sosa came up, so it was good to see him. One of our favorite, speaking of quotes, one of my favorite things is to check in on the White Sox whisperer, Bob Nightingale, and what he has to say, usually in his Sunday column in USA Today. And he had some interesting stuff to say, if you don't mind me rattling some stuff off to you. I want you to get to
I'll
your
let
reaction.
You try and get through this without interrupting.
Yep.
Go ahead.
According to Nightingale, the White Sox are conducting a series of internal interviews to determine whether dramatic changes are needed inside the front office or the coaching staff. This has been one of the most disappointing and painful seasons in Chairman Jerry Reinsdorf's tenure. GM Rick Hahn has 1 year left on his contract, while manager Pedro Grifol has 2 years remaining. So interviews. I want to know is who's doing the interviewing. Is it Hahn interviewing himself? Asking himself his own questions?
How do you think you've done? I think I've done pretty good with what I've been given. Are you sure about that? Absolutely. Good to see you.
Done. Interview done. Completed.
Well, who is? You ask who's doing the interviewing. I want to know who's being interviewed. Like, is this part of? Now, obviously, Jerry is the chairman of the board, right? And he's got the majority share of the team. But there's other people that have ownership stake in this team. I don't know how many it is. I don't really know the details of the actual structure of who's got a piece and how many people are involved. But are those the people that are being interviewed, the people that actually have some stake in this organization and maybe some care? I mean, Jerry's always been very good about taking care of the shareholders. I think regardless of the fact of the team is good, team is bad, if the team draws or the team doesn't draw, I think his partners always make out pretty well from what I've heard. But is it gotten to the point where those people maybe are looking at the grand scheme of baseball and athletics as a whole and saying, boy, we could have a lot more if we, actually won more consistently. Maybe it'd be
here's an idea.
Here's a crazy thought. Look at the landscape of sports and what you can get for a franchise. Wouldn't it be nice if maybe we were competitive on a year in and year out basis? And maybe wouldn't it be nice if when this team does come up for sale that we can get the highest price? I don't know. It's just curious that I wonder if it's those people, or are they like interviewing, no offense, anybody out there that does this job, but are they going to the ticket folks, or who's being interviewed?
I hope it's just random. I hope it's You know,
just whoever happens to be walking by.
Yeah. Hey, wait a second. You got a couple. Come over here. Come into the. We got just a couple of questions. What just what do you think? You think major changes should be made? I mean, you're here regularly. What are you hearing? What's the scuttlebutt?
Seems
what
like
are you
it's
hearing in the
going along
street?
great.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know. Those are questions that we'll never know. Probably. Yes, if someone asked me, yes, major changes have to occur, massive changes. We've talked about it recently, and in the last few episodes, I hammered away at Locked On, as so many other people do that have a microphone or are pumping out articles top down. It needs to absolutely change top down, and I think Rick Hahn's got to go. I would love to see Pedro Grifol go and just say, you know what, we made a big mistake, massive, big mistake. And Hahn goes and his guy, Pedro goes. Daryl Boston stays.
Well, he's got the golden parachute. By the way, before we go much further, I do have to shout out Drew, who's been on fire in the text chat or the chat the last 2 weeks, as he always is. But he's all over the place today. God bless him. But no doubt about it. Everybody should be hoisted. But again, it's just curious that they're internally having these conversations. And Bad News Bob, I thought was the Jerry whisperer, but it's also been Kenny too, right? They're pretty close with Kenny, and I just wonder who's the one that's spoon feeding him the information, because it's one of the two, and Jerry's not talking to anybody else. So is it Jerry? Is it Kenny that's saying that there's discussions? Because if it's Kenny, then I would think that Kenny's the one that's still safe.
It's just. I can't even really put it into words. Again, I said at the top, are you embarrassed to be a Sox fan? And, I asked you that question. I don't find embarrassment wearing, and I wear Sox gear all the time, every single day, out and about. No shocker to anybody. I think at the age we're at, you don't get into those conversations that I used to when I was in my early 20s and somebody said something that I didn't find very favorable about the Chicago White Sox. That was a big, massive mistake. And there was consequences that usually my friends that were around me had to figure out, because
you would Hulk out. You wouldn't like Nick when he's angry. You could say a lot of things to Nick Murawski, but if it was about the White Sox, then
stay out of White Sox business.
Here we go.
That's what So now it's like I think there's people out there that I'll run into, wherever, and it's like, we'll want to talk White Sox, because you find a kindred spirit, you find like another suffering soul, and you're like, have you been watching? Do you still watch? What is going on? And it is, it's so dejecting. And if there aren't changes, there's so many people I know that are just done, like long time season ticket holders, long time. They're just, I'm out. There's a few that are saying, like, hold on, I just want to see what this organization is going to do. There has to be massive changes for me to stick around. I'll follow them, but to pony up that kind of money when there is no accountability, I can't stomach that.
Yeah. Again, this will be an interesting offseason. I said it, at the beginning of the season, and I'll say it again. The beginning of this season could determine the next 5 years of this organization. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's gone the way it's gone. And they're doing things now that makes it look like they're going to be a, tear it completely down type of plan. Just again, I could be wrong, but it's looking like that'll be the plan going into the off season if the people that are still there are making these decisions. I ultimately don't know if that's the way I would go. I would try and add. I would try and salvage, what you have in Luis Robert Jr. I would. I think you owe it to yourselves, as this was your golden goose right here. And if we could find a way to piecemeal at least something together around this guy, that is the first superstar we've had since Frank Thomas, that I think you owe it to your fan base to try to put something together that's at least competitive next year. Am I wrong for saying that?
Man, that gets me kind of excited to hear that pitch. And maybe that is one of the people from the concessions or something that they dragged in. And they're like, "Excuse
Pat's
me,
got the same
Super
thought as
Rope,
the beer hawker.
Super Rope guy, can I talk to you for a second? Just what should we be making
They
changes?"
still sell Super Rope.
I think so.
Do they?
I'm sure.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure. And that Super Rope guy gave that kind of speech that you just did. Just looked Jerry square and just said, "You owe it to me. You owe it to every other concession seller, every fan, to maximize Luis Roberts Jr., the first superstar since Frank Thomas." Wow. I mean, you talk about we've used this reference, the Seinfeld reference, where the Camel guy goes from mailroom to right up to the top floor. I mean, Super Rope guy, he's now calling the shots.
Wow.
He's in the front office,
and he'll have a job with Daryl Boston for the rest of their lives.
Exactly. It's all about hitting it out when you got that opportunity. So we talked Cubs Sox last time. It doesn't necessarily have the same allure to me. You want the Sox to beat the Cubs. That was really dejecting, I found, this past week. That walk-off just absolutely, that was a dagger, man.
Yeah.
Santos trying to do back-to-back. He had some nasty stuff in that win, and I think he can be a closer in 2024. It sounds like he wants it. Just he didn't have it in back-to-back, but boy, Nick Madrigal, getting things going with a home run. He was supposed to be the next Nelly Fox. We could do a series of episodes on how that thing went terribly wrong and why it even happened in the first place. But did that hit you? Were you able to sleep at night? Because it was difficult for me.
Here's the thing, Nick. I think I was putting kids to bed. I watched the majority of that game, and then I turned it off, put some kids to bed, and I'll check on the score. They're up 3-0, and I looked and they lost 4-3, and so it's a little bit less painful when you don't have to experience it live. But I'm still this way, and again, even though the Sox are out of it, I won't listen to the station that I work for in the morning the next day because of that, because I can't handle it. I don't want to even hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. I need some time to decompress.
You've always been that way. You and I if you're new to Good Guys Talk Back and then you're jumping on from lockdown, boy, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for following me over here at Good Guys. And we've been at this for 5 years now. And Pat and I have known each other since high school, or not high school, almost like freshman in college. We were doing radio and TV and broadcasting in college, and man, instantly connected and found out, we were both diehard Sox fans, and the rest is history. But you've always been like that. Even back in college, I remember you saying you wouldn't watch highlights. You wouldn't watch SportsCenter. You'd stay away from all that stuff if they lost. I want to know, I watch all of it, but even if I happen to miss here and there, I still want to know. Like I will listen. I will read the articles. Like, well, what happened? What did they say? How did it develop?
Like I'll avoid Twitter now. I mean, it's changed. I mean, staying away from social media is something that now this is a little bit unique. A loss like the last 2 games, to Colorado. I'm not ostriching it and sticking my head in the sand. But in a Cubs game, for sure, can't stomach it. Can't do it. Not going to happen. It would have been great. It would have been a nice way to have something positive, a 2-game sweep, a little bit of payback for what happened on the South side, and kind of derail the Cubs from some good things. They're looking at us and licking their chops because they've got an easy schedule. Would have been nice to hand them a little humble pie, but it wasn't for not. It was for not. And we wait until next year to the next Windy City Classic, or
it was Windy City Classic, right? Years
BP.
ago when it was 1 game and it didn't count, and that was the game that Jordan played in, and that was the Windy City Classic. Steve Lyons played every position. So I still call it that. I referenced it that, but yeah. Again, throwing it in the middle of the week, a 2-game series, it doesn't help. It doesn't help the allure. Towards the end of summer, kids are going back to school. That thing used to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, prime summer. It was outstanding. But Mike Clevenger pitched in that Cubs series, and I believe he did fairly well. And he's the Sox are going to make a decision on that, or maybe Clevenger's going to make a decision. I don't know. Under terms of the agreement, Clevenger will receive $8 million in 2023 with a mutual option, $12 million option for 2024. That includes a $4 million buyout. Do you think Clevenger feels like, oh, I don't know, man, I might be able to strike it on the market. I might be able to make it could be a weak market. I might be able to make a little more here.
If it were me, well, again, he's got a lot of baggage, obviously. So he may have to play it differently than maybe other guys in his position. If it was somebody else, without the history of whatever happened or allegedly happened, all that stuff, that's on his record. Maybe he just says, I'm going to roll the dice because I'm a starting pitcher. I'm a guy that's had a lot of success in this league. And now I've got some good stuff. I put it out there on tape, and I can go out there and bet on myself a little bit, right? There's going to be somebody that needs a starting pitcher of my caliber and of my ilk. But with him, maybe he goes, this is probably the safer option for me not to go out anywhere. And I can make another good year. It would probably be just another 1-year deal, I would imagine. I would think, but I could be wrong there too. But, all things considered, aside from him, his availability at times, I can't say that I can complain too much about what Mike Clevenger has brought to this team this year.
Yeah, in a season that they just need pitching. They need innings, and you look to 2024 and where those innings are going to come from, and he might be somebody that they are going to have to rely on, whether you like it or not. Do you pay attention to? We've talked Jake Berger. Do you pay attention to any of these players that have left the White Sox at the trade deadline, namely Lynn or Giolito, and what they've been doing?
Not really. It's why you want to do that to yourself. Would you continually check in on an ex-girlfriend to see what she's doing? You want to torture yourself and see how much fun they're having? I don't think so. It is what it is. They're off with somebody else. Yeah.
I'm a little curious. And Lance Lynn has been pitching pretty well for the Dodgers. Nightingale featured it a little bit in his Sunday article with USA Today. Dodgers made the right choice with going with Lynn, because Giolito, he's 1-3, I'm sorry, with an 8.14 ERA for the Angels.
Is that bad?
It's not good.
Not wrong.
It is.
I have not done that.
I've got to plead ignorance here. That's not ideal. So interesting. It's not always pitchers just leave the White Sox and they just completely flip things. It feels like it happens quite often, but a lot goes into it. A better defense, pitching for a team that'll actually score you a bunch of runs.
It changes things.
More energy. There's more energy with those teams, perhaps.
I'm happy for guys if they go out and have energy for sure. If they go out and have success with other teams, but I don't really go out of my way to see how they're doing or look up, Berger home run highlights and see how much fun he's having down in Miami. That ship has sailed. It's time to focus on other things and worry about the guys that are on this team and think about, what this organization wants to do going forward. I don't know that I need to torture myself like that. And the same goes for, with Giolito. I had no idea that he was 1-3 with an 8 ERA because I don't really care all that much, but I'm also not happy. It doesn't give me any joy to go, oh, good. He's shitting the bed over with another team. I'd like to see him do well. I have no reason for him not to do well, especially with my team out of it. right? So it'd be different if, the Sox and the Angels met each other in the playoffs, and it's Giolito. That would be an odd situation, right? You trade away starting pitcher and you make the playoffs. But let's just say that happened. That would be a different story. Then it's like, oh boy, I don't want this guy to shove against us and knock us out of the playoffs. That would be just, terrible. That'd be like salt in the wound. But in this situation, it's like, okay, whatever. I hope you have fun, have a good time, have a great career.
Yeah. Drew mentioned in the chat, in the comments, Jake Berger, and I like Jake Berger a lot. And you can't, for me, in my opinion, such a great story, tough to root against. And everything he overcame, and the injury stuff and the success, and he just felt like, man, he's really turning a corner here. All the work that, again, talk about giving up. I'm sure he wanted to give up several times. I believe there's probably even articles about it, and he persevered. And but based on what he did this season, he got to have some consistent consistent playing time with a team that could be going to the playoffs in Miami. So that is a good story, but it doesn't like drastically move the needle. It's just like, oh, okay, that's just an interesting, perspective. It's an interesting, I guess, people story, so to speak, of White Sox players from the past and what they're currently like. Where are they now? Type of thing. It's like, that's interesting.
So when and if any of these guys that we've traded away do make it to the playoffs, right? I'm sure the Dodgers will. Angels, not so sure about, but will you pick a team? Do you ever pick a team in the playoffs to root for? And if you do, would it have anything to do with guys that used to play for the Sox?
It has. Yeah. I believe it has in the past. Sometimes when I look at teams, it's just like, well, I somebody in my life, I'm connected to somebody, in my life that's a fan of that team. And like, they haven't seen the success from that team, or, I'll use it a football analogy. When the Bears were out of it years ago, and I know this was tough to stomach, but I was happy for the Eagles when they won, because I had a really close friend at the time that was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And it was like, well, and he told me like had the connection between him and his dad, and watching Eagles games and Phillies games. And I was just really like, cool, man. I'm glad you had that moment. That's great for you. So I was rooting for that in that Super Bowl. Like, okay, I'd like to see the Eagles win for him. And I'm sure it's happened in baseball a few times. I'm trying to think specifically about a former player. If a former White Sox player, if I was like, oh, I really want good for him. Nah, I'm sure it'll come to me eventually.
I can't think of one specifically either, but I know I have. I know I've thought, oh, I'll root for them because of this player, and whether they win or not. But it gives me something or a reason to root for one team over the other. I'm not. You and I are not sports bettors. We're probably the last two 42-year-old sports fans in America that are males that do not sports bet on our phones all the time. And
I just don't have the personality. I can't. Yeah.
Well, we talk about it. Maybe one day we'll actually put down a bet on, day game after night game after the Sox score runs.
We've been in Vegas though, you and I, and we've bet on the White Sox, and
we did, and they won the World Series. So maybe it's my fault that they, that's the last time I think I bet on anything was in 2004 when we were in Vegas together. And I bet on the White Sox the following year to win it all, and I won $80.
Yeah, I think that's what we needed
to do.
It
was in 2000. We were in 2005, Nick. That's what
I think it had to be.
We were there in the summertime, and they were playing well, so the odds were not in my favor.
I don't know if you can put down a future bet like that far advance.
They'll take your money. They'll just
somebody will. Some super ropes. Some guy selling super ropes on the strip will just be like, I'll take that. I'll take that
bet for you.
I'll take that bet.
I'll ask him next time. Will you take a bet too?
Now, are you speaking of bets? Here's a good one. If you bet that Tim Anderson sticks around and is wearing a White Sox uniform, and in 2024 and beyond, Anderson was suspended, of course, for that fight with Ramirez in Cleveland. His suspension was reduced from 6 to 5 games, and Anderson came out and, apologized and had this big statement recently. I'll just read you a blurb here. I always try to lead by example, Anderson said, but I haven't given a good example. So that's definitely not a good point. But I try every day to be better, to better myself and better the guys around me. I'm pretty sure this organization knows what type of person I am, what I bring to the table, and how I work. I've got to be better. I have to be better. I will be better. Keep working, and I won't take anything for granted. Keep trying to better myself as a whole, on and off the field, and just keep pushing. The Sox hold a $14 million option for Anderson in 2024 with a $1 million buyout.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, has it been the last 3 consecutive years, if not every year, he's been suspended for, multiple games? He's got beef with a lot of different players and different organizations. I don't know, maybe that the Sox are just not kind of tired of it, tired of the act. And when the juice isn't worth the squeeze, like it has been this year, maybe it is time for the buyout and let him go on his merry way. And maybe that would be the best day of his life. Nick, I've heard from people. I've been very fortunate to never been, fired from a job in my life. But I've heard from some people that do get fired. They're like, thank the Lord. I just need to get out. Some people are just happy to be fired because,
of course,
they just need a new start and they just don't know how to get going. And this is their opportunity to do that. So I just wonder if it's time for him and the time for the organization, and both of them just go in their separate, ways. And he may find, be rejuvenated somewhere else. But it's odd though, because, this was the guy, this was the change the game guy. This was the guy that was the face of this franchise and almost the face of baseball for a time. If you remember, there was a lot of discussion. I mean, his face was on video games. It was the change of the game comment.
He was in a Dairy Queen
swag.
commercial as well.
What's that? Yeah.
He really made it.
It was everything. It was everything that, baseball wanted. Was like, oh, Tim Anderson, young and flashy and new age, and going to bring a lot of, new fans and eyes to the game. And really all it's done is he continues to be like a black cloud right now. And the skills haven't been there this year. So I don't know. And I just don't know. I'd like to have the player back that we used to have. I really would. But I just don't know if that player's there anymore. This question,
and good point by Matt. The apology was needed. It was definitely better than the bizarro cryptic tweets, and boy, we were going to read them, but I don't know if we just were going to be able to do them justice. They were some bizarre stuff after the incident. So it was needed to have that apology. Is there any worth in comparing? I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to talk this out. A Dennis Rodman situation with Tim Anderson. There was a baggage with Dennis Rodman, but there was also a lot of success with Dennis Rodman. And there were some suspensions and there was some fines, and, he drew a lot of attention, but the Bulls were pretty damn good and he was really good, So, I think I think you can let things slide when the team is really good and you're playing really well, even though a suspension would hurt your team. But I think you see where I'm getting at, perhaps. And it's just the way Anderson's been going. It's like, to your point, it's like, I don't know if all this is worth it.
Yeah, winning cures everything, right, Nick? I mean, you win, you're part of a winning organization. You can deal with, that kind of stuff and the sideshow and the circus act. And, but when you're a team that is really floundering, I mean, all your warts are seen, right? There's no ointment going on anything. Everything is out there for everybody. The boils are bursting. They're seen by the public.
Such a graphic image.
Well, maybe that's
boils and
maybe that's the title of this episode. You've never used the title of mine, but
okay.
bursting boils.
Bursting point. I walked into a Menards this past weekend, and
Mhm.
the boils and the ward stuff reminded me of witches and what have you. The Halloween stuff is already in full force, and I saw it at Jules. The Oktoberfest is out, Pat. So just so
Oh
you
yes,
know,
that's been out for
yeah,
several weeks.
okay,
I've been
all
told
right,
by somebody.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
it's
there you
we're
go.
flipping the calendar, or we're
Yeah,
flipping the season's over. It's fall, baby.
yeah.
It's fall. It's
Bursting
football
boils.
season.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know. It used to be an absolute guarantee for me. Like, and I thought Tim Anderson was going to get, that 9-figure deal, $100 million man, first one in history for the White Sox, and I don't feel that way anymore. And I just don't know what to. I
So
don't
would
know
it
what
shock you if
direction.
he got brought back? Would it surprise you, or would it just be kind of like, okay, I guess I could. It's like I could see it both ways type of thing, or would it at this
It
point
wouldn't
like, wow,
surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, but also if he was traded away or something happened where he just wasn't in a White Sox uniform next season, I also would say, yeah, I could see that. Where 2 years ago, I would have been floored
yeah,
that would have happened.
yeah. I think I'd be a little surprised if they brought him back at this point. I think it's
Really?
a little bit. I think again, when you're playing well and you're hitting over 320, and you're being the reason why the team is winning, because we all saw it for a time period, the record this team had when Tim Anderson played in the game. It was astounding. We called him the straw that stirred the drink type of thing. And you can kind of deal with whatever kind of personality was, or whatever their situation where he's not sitting by the teammates in the locker room, and whatever it is, right? And they tried to trade him at the trade deadline and nobody would have him. So maybe now it's to the point where it's like, okay, you're not that good. I don't know if you're going to get any better. The power has just gone away and evaporated. Not that there was that much power there to begin with. And the defense has never been, I would say, more than above average. So I think I would be surprised if they held on to him, to be honest with you.
Well, there's going to be, I think, there's going to be a lot happening. I think this Bob Nightingale blurb in the USA Today was just the beginning. I think there's going to be more stuff, whether we know about it, whether it's true, whether it's just putting fans down, just wanting, this is what the organization thinks fans want to hear. So maybe ticket sales increase or something of like, oh, I heard there's going to be changes at Bruin. I better set my money aside. I don't know. I'm just, that's a conspiracy, but I think there will be changes though. Just to what degree, and will it just be reshuffling? But yeah, time is dwindling down. I want to see some of the young guys. I want to see Lenine Sosa get more playing time, consistent playing time, and I just want to, I want to see guys that could be helping this team in 2024. How are they being able to be groomed or given an opportunity to gain confidence? And that is paramount, taking that into the off season, ending the season on some good vibes, knowing like I might have a shot in 2024. I think that helps set somebody up for success.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Nick. I would like to see, the younger kids play too, because at this point, regardless of what Pedro Grofal says or what he actually thinks or believes, it's got to be about development at this point. You've got to take the opportunity that you have and develop what you maybe have your starting shortstop, or maybe your starting second baseman right on this roster this year. And it'd be nice to kind of find out more about these guys.
So looking ahead for this week, how I look at the Sox, I usually go off of, well, what's Pedro Grifol telling us to look at? And I do want to hold him accountable. If you're going to put that out there and say that, you're looking at energy and you're going to address this and try to sustain the energy and the focus the entire game, I'll continue to look at that. I'm curious to see, how they field teams, what the roster looks like, and certain pitching efforts. That to me, and Santos, like he could be a valuable arm in 2024. and Michael Kopech's next start, and all those kinds of things that, are we stringing anything together now with this season being gone? Are we stringing anything together, especially when September rolls around, that could give you hope into the off season?
Boy, oh boy. I don't know. I was thinking this today, Nick, the old saying that Hawk used to say, you win 60, you lose 60, and the other 60, all that stuff. I just hope that we win 60. We're supposed to win 60, right?
Yeah. That's we might get to the point where you play that old game of once September hits, will the Sox win more games in September than the Bears, or the other way around, or,
Yeesh.
It's I have definitely had higher hopes, much higher hopes, as everybody did, for this Rockies series. So
you had hopes? You were still hoping, huh?
The Rockies are a horrible team, but we're a horrible team, Nick. So I was just hoping we weren't as bad as the Rockies.
Jeez, well, I guess we can hang our hat on at least the one game we did win, and we have a better record than the Rockies still. So take that,
also,
Colorado.
I believe we talked about this before as we're wrapping this episode up. The reverse boycott, I believe, is still on August 24th. It's a Thursday. You can find cheap tickets. Go to Game Time, get that app. They usually can give you some free bucks, when you sign up. Get some cheap tickets. Go with some friends. Exercise your voice. The frustration. We saw what happened in Oakland. Different story, of course, than the Oakland situation. But I feel like when like-minded people can come together, can unify, organize in a peaceful way to get a message across, I think it could be powerful. Will it be listened to? I'm not sure, but it'll be heard. I know
Farm Aid.
Exactly like Farm Aid.
It's the same thing.
It is with T-shirts, so we'll see. And I think well, you're just giving more money to Jerry, sure, but again, if you are frustrated enough, you just don't feel like you're listened to, I completely support that option as a way to just, exercise your voice. I don't know if we'll see Corey Lee. It sounds like it from Pedro Grifol, from what he has said. He wants to get a look at him. It'd be nice. That would be something positive to see what we got in the backstop world. We've got enough of them recently. See if we could get some of these guys that we got, in this flurry of moves. I don't know how many are ready, but I feel like Corey Lee, we might get some eyes on that. That would be nice.
Well, I guess here's hoping for a fantastic end of August and into September, and just see what we got.
Pat, as we say goodbye, I just want to, I want to thank a lot of people that were listening to me at Locked On, have jumped on to Good Guys Talk Back. And a lot of folks were doing Good Guys Talk Back and Locked On. I ended Locked On, my time there this past Thursday. And so many wonderful comments and posts and messages. And boy, I can't thank you enough for the continued support and the kind words. And it has been tough the last 2 years, but there are so many diehard Sox fans out there, and it's been great to just kind of connect with all of you. So I really appreciate you jumping over. If you're a first timer here to Good Guys Talk Back, this is where I will be. We do this once a week. I'm hoping to start doing a couple more episodes here and there, especially when news breaks. And we've been at it for a long time, but it's, even in these difficult situations, it's good to, I think, just as you always say, Pat, just therapy. We can talk it out together.
That's a good therapy session. Well said, Nick. I saw a lot of the messages you got, and I'm sure I didn't see half of them, but you did fantastic. And I'll be here with you every Sunday. We're gonna chop it up and do the best we can to entertain the folks.
Pat, always a pleasure, buddy. Folks, thank you so very much for joining us here Sunday night in the comments on YouTube. You can find the audio absolutely everywhere. Pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. We do appreciate it. On Twitter at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.